Congratulations to the wonderful achievements of the G20 summit out of months and probably years of preparation. Let me ask you about China-Indonesia. There are tremendous amount of synergy between the two countries now. Investment is one of the key. China is second largest investor into Indonesia. You're in charge of investment in Indonesia. Tell me more about the nature of this relationship.
Well, I think first of all, yeah, if you calculate the total population between Indonesia and China, it consists about 1.7 billion people of population. So it's a huge market, yeah, that I don't think many countries can enjoy this relationship. So with 1.7 billion of population, a combined market. So I think the cooperation between Indonesia and China on the economic aspect, I think is very important. Yeah. There are three aspects that I think strengthen between Indonesia and China. Yeah. First of all, I think we have a very big market, 1.7 billion population. The second one is I think we can cooperate on the technological development because China is very advanced on this one. And the third one is also the cooperation on the investment is also very important. So if you combine all of these three aspects, huge market, technological cooperation and development, and the investment, I think the cooperation between China and Indonesia can be a model, yeah, for the other countries as well.
When you talk about the three distinctive characteristics of this cooperation, let's focus on investment. For example, China is the second largest investor into Indonesia. A lot of this is in infrastructure, raw materials, and related industries. What is the prospect of investment that you see in the coming years?
For the last 7 years, a lot of investment from China to Indonesia coming in to process and increase further our value added of the mineral resources. Yeah. So previously we export a raw material. Yeah. For example, the nickel or bauxite. Yeah. But with the Chinese investment coming in, we are not exporting this type of material anymore. We are exporting a much higher value added, the iron and steel, battery material, and then with this higher value added, we can enjoy the job opportunities created of this investment, tax revenue, regional economic development, especially on the eastern part of Indonesia. So I guess this is very important aspect of the investment. I think this will continue in the future. We are moving from iron and steel to the battery materials. Yeah. But recently the cooperation on the healthcare, is also growing quite significant. Yeah. In fact, I think the first mRNA vaccine, a factory in Southeast Asia is in Indonesia, and it is invested by the Chinese investor as well. So I think on the healthcare, I think we have very good opportunities to further cooperate in the future. And I think if you see maybe clearly the investment amount, I think for the last 3 years, I would say China is number one, because some of the investment from Chinese investor also goes through the Singapore and go to Indonesia. So I would say if you calculate the ultimate beneficiary of this investor, I would say Chinese investment has been number one.
Let's talk about infrastructure. The Jakarta-Bandung Railway, of course, is one of the very first high-speed railways in Southeast Asia, together with China-Laos, China-Thailand. So you have already seen the inauguration of that, a test run, for example, by the two presidents witnessed. So what is going to be the efficiency of implementation for the next stage?
Well, I think this project is very important, because what we've seen in China, how the high-speed train changed the connectivity between cities. I think it's very important, and it's quite similar with Jakarta and Bandung. Once I think we complete this project in mid next year, I think we are going to evaluate further, to study further, to actually extend from Bandung to Jogja and to Surabaya. So the total would be around 750 kilometers. So I think it is very exciting for me because I think what we have seen from the development of this high-speed train, yeah, between Jakarta and Bandung, I think it can provide a significant benefit, yeah, for the countries and for the people.
Earlier, you mentioned, Mr. Seto, that China is enthusiastic about sharing the technologies and also for sharing knowledge and know-how of innovation with the Indonesian side.
Yes, yes. I can give you an example in one of the battery materials cooperation, yeah, between an investor from China and Indonesia, yeah. So the Chinese investor sent actually 35 students of Indonesia to do a master degree in China, yeah. And then once the factory is completed, they complete the study, and actually they are the one who are actually right now running the factory, yeah. So this type of cooperation is very important. So the Chinese investor, what we have seen so far, not only build the infrastructure, the investment, but also train the Indonesian people to understand about the technology that they are bringing to Indonesia. So I guess this is a very good cooperation, I can say.
And you have heard from the Chinese side that there is going to be elevated quality of the Belt and Road Initiative. Of course, the infrastructure investments such as the Jakarta-Bandung Railway is one of those projects. How do you understand this higher quality, and how is Indonesia side working with the Chinese side on that issue?
Well, I think higher quality is not only means that the quality of the infrastructure itself is up to the standard that has been agreed by both countries. Yeah, the higher quality also means that there is a technological transfer to the Indonesian people, for example, on how to operate this high-speed train. There is a human development training for the Indonesian people, to understand about this high-speed train. So it's not only on the physical aspect of the infrastructure itself, but also and how we can train the Indonesian people, how we can do the transfer technology to actually operate further this high-speed train and doing the maintenance. Yeah, so I think this is a comprehensive, I would say, understanding about the high quality infrastructure cooperation between Indonesia and China.
There are different opinions in the world if you look at the global media about the Belt and Road Initiative. Many would portray it in such a sarcastic and also negative light. And yet, many of the people that I've been talking to that are implementing these projects are having somewhat different opinions, just as you demonstrated. Very interesting, Mr. Seto. How do you understand this very diverse phenomenon?
Well, I would say this is part of the recent geopolitical development, yeah. But let's not talk about the geopolitical development. If we are focusing on this cooperation, making this cooperation beneficial for both countries, as what we have seen so far in Indonesia, I guess this Belt and Road Initiative is a very good initiative coming from China towards the developing countries. Yeah, we have seen a lot of development, not only on the investment, infrastructure, human development, technological transfer, yeah, coming from this initiative. So I guess, well, yeah, outside people can say anything, but what we have understand so far in Indonesia, I think Indonesia get a lot of benefit from this Belt and Road as well.
I have this impression after traveling briefly in Southeast Asia over the past few weeks for G20 and also for APEC Economic Leaders Meeting, that the Southeast Asian nations, for example, our Indonesian colleagues and also those in Thailand and others, are very pragmatic. There is not that much enthusiasm about geopolitics, but rather how to get things done to recover the economy after years of the pandemic. Mr. Seto, as someone who's working on investment into Indonesia, tell us more about that. Help us to understand the mentality of you and many of your colleagues now working in the government.
Well, yes, first of all, I read the President Xi Jinping speech in the last Party Congress, yeah. And one aspect of the speech that I fully remember is how China developed the economy at one things, you are able to increase your GDP per capita very significant. But at the same times, you can also alleviate a lot of poverty from the countries. Yeah, more than 100 million people, if I'm not mistaken, can be alleviated from the poverty. So I guess this is our understanding about the common prosperity. Yeah. So I think for Indonesia, what the focus of the government is on this aspect. Yeah, actually, how can increase the welfare of the people, and at the same time, so how we can reduce the poverty level. Yeah. So this is something that is not an easy one, yeah, because we need to grow our economy faster, but at the same time, how this growth of our GDP can be enjoyed as well by a lot of the people in Indonesia. So not only segmented, few people that enjoy this economic growth. So we are very happy because a lot of this Chinese investment actually going into the eastern part of Indonesia, yeah, which is, previously is less developed than the western part of Indonesia.
Yeah. So for you, as someone in charge of investment, how do you, on a daily basis, navigate the different terms of geopolitics and be able to focus on the real work?
Well, I think it's very important. Yeah, if we are dealing on the investment, we really need to understand that this investment has to be beneficial for both parties, for the investor and for Indonesia. So I think that's it. Yeah, as long as this can be beneficial for both parties, then we just focus on that. Yeah, I think, like I mentioned to you earlier, at the end, the government need to take care of their own people, how to increase their welfare, how to remove the poverty. So I think that's the priority.
We have seen over the past few months the quote unquote the Asian wisdom shines, particularly during the most important regional and international meetings. As someone in charge of investment in your country, how do you see the concept of Asian wisdom, and how do you exercise it in a way every day?
For us, it's very simple. Yeah, we have set of rule and regulation that has to be followed by all the investors. Yeah. First of all, like I already mentioned earlier, you have to this cooperation of the investment have to beneficial for both parties, for the Indonesian and for the investor. That's for the second one. I guess the investor need to follow all the regulation that has been put in place by the government. Yeah, on the environmental, on the education, on the transfer of technology. So I think this is set of rules that so far has been followed by all the investors that is coming to Indonesia. Yeah. So just focus on that, and then I think you are gonna be doing okay. Yeah. This is so far that what we have implemented for the last 7 to 8 years.
Now, China and Indonesia already upgraded the strategic partnership to comprehensive strategic partnership. And both the leaders have witnessed the upgrading of this relationship in a way. So how do you see that's going to have an impact on your work before we go?
Well, I think it's very important. The endorsement from both presidents on this cooperation is very important, I would say. I think when I talk with a lot of the Chinese investors, they have more confidence, to do the investment in Indonesia, yeah, because the endorsement from the President Xi Jinping and the President Jokowi on the cooperation between both countries, especially on this economics and the investment aspect. Yeah. So I think it's provide a significant confidence. I would say my job will be a lot of easier in the future. Yeah, because of this endorsement from both president, to attract more investment into Indonesia.
Finally, the pandemic. There are still a lot of uncertainties in countries themselves and among them. So how do you going to navigate these uncertainties as a decision maker on the investment side? And how are you working with your senior officials of the administration on that?
Well, I would say we have the experience to handle the Delta variant, yeah, back in the mid 2021. Yeah, I think we already have a good understanding on how to balance between the pandemic control and how to keep the economy open and rolling. Yeah, I think this is very important. Yeah.
What is it? What is it? You say you have already a good knowledge. What is that knowledge?
Well, I think in Indonesia we already developed a system, yeah, and how to monitor the pandemic, yeah, and how to address this pandemic while we can keep the economy open. So I think that is very important. I would say, yeah, based on our experience in handling this Delta variant, yeah, how to control the pandemic, but at the same time you can also manage and keep the economy open and works. So I think that's very important. Based on this understanding, I guess we are, I would say, more ready to handle if there is any further or future pandemic.
Thank you so much, Mr. Seto. Really appreciate it.